Hi people, it's YouTube o'clock and it's time for a new video. Let's start. Okay, so recently I just showed you how to download Blender and basically make a quick onboarding. So what you can see by default when you open the Blender, there is this 3D viewport, which we'll cover today in more details. And there was an outliner, this properties panel, and timeline. So now today we will cover how to navigate more in this 3D viewport and how to move objects, rotate them, scale, and use some shortcuts, use some widgets, and also we'll cover this kind of mysterious but really important for Blender 3D cursor. So yeah, just let's begin. Okay, so when you open Blender by default, you have this default cube, but we can like remove it, and just to memorize better with Shift A, you can add an object. So we can make this cube again or something different, like UV sphere, for example. Okay, and as you can see, I have this move tool activated. You can have this one, which is like by default, and but if you go here, you will activate this move widget. So you now see you basically have those arrows, and they are for the like axis to move the object, move the selected object, which is highlighted by this orange outline. So if I just drag this blue one, it is for a z-axis. So it's like up and down in Blender, at least, because it differs within different 3D software basically. So in Blender is that way. You have the y-axis and x-axis. Okay, so if you do not remember the shortcut, or just prefer using widgets, or just you want to make some small adjustment, it is just more convenient that way. You can totally use it. Shortcuts are really fast actually in Blender, so I will suggest to at least memorize those for moving, which is G, like G, because it stands from grab. So it's like move, but in Blender it's called grab. So like grab and move. So just try to memorize that it is G. Okay, and if I just press it, we can move like freely within the projection we are looking at currently. So like the plane that the slice of 3D, 3D area that we are looking. And if I press G and then let's say hit X, we'll just isolate the movement to the X axis. As you can see, we can slide it like that. Okay, we can press escape to cancel it, and let's say G and Y, so it's my Y axis, and escape G Z, okay, like that. And you can also do something different, which is pressing G and let's say Shift Z, and you can now basically move by this cross section of X and Y. So you do not affect the Z location, as you can see even on the right side of the screen with this transform panel. Okay, so that can be convenient. Okay, like that. And yeah, so like that. And with this widget you also have this plane, so it's like the same stuff, just within widget, like those three planes. Okay, so that is nice. What you can also do is to rotate object. So it is R. So it's easier to remember because R like rotate. Okay, so I press once and I'm rotating this projection view, and if I press R again, it will like orbit in 3D, so like freely rotating in all axes. Okay, and I can cancel it, and let's say I want to just rotate on the x-axis, so I can press R and X, and as you can see, we can rotate only on that axis, and the same with sorry, not S, R and let's say Y, yeah, like that. So it's the same. It's the same as with moving or grabbing, as it's called in Blender, and yeah. So you can also change the widget. So you have like with moving, you have arrows, and here you have those basically like curves that you can just drag and rotate in a particular axis. So just remember that the red one is always x-axis, the green one is y-axis, and the blue one is z-axis. So that it's like here, just not visible now. And this white like circle is this projection we are looking like right now. So like yeah, viewport, basically view. Okay, so it's changing depending on how you see your viewport. It may be better visible when I will just Shift A and add another object, which is monkey. It's default like Blender mascot. She's called Suzanne, and it's actually really old model. So it's nice to use that model to just test some things and like materials or just placing objects and so on. So it is really popular object, sorry. And if you see now, it's better visible that I'm actually rotating stuff. And you can also not hovering on any particular curve, you can like in between just orbit. So it's the same as hitting R twice, like that. Okay. Okay, and we have also scale. So with scale, you can see I can scale with this widget or just press S like scale, so it's really easy to remember, and then we can scale it. We can also isolate some particular axis like by X, like that. Okay, so it is nice. Maybe I will show you on the cube. So I'm Shift A and add a cube. So you can also use this excluding axis to do effect like that. You see? So if you just want keep the height but like expand the object in the volume, you can use that. So it's quite convenient actually. And here you have this axis separation widget. So yeah, so just to memorize, G is from moving, R is for rotating, and S is for scaling. So it's quite easy to actually remember. And yeah, okay, I can just go to this selection mode maybe, and let's quickly remove those things and just add maybe I don't know, cylinder, just to make something different. And what you can see here in the like the middle of the screen is this 3D cursor, and it is basically like a pivot point which you can then use to rotate objects and scale them. So it is really handy. Let's say you would want to rotate this cylinder, but like making a pivot point here. So by default, the rotation is like the middle of the volume basically, and this is this orange dot. So if I press rotate, you can see it's rotating in the middle of the volume, and in this case it's also the middle of our 3D world, basically our scene. So maybe I will show you better when I just move it a bit like that. Okay, and now I will press F3 to go to side view. Okay, or you can use those widgets basically. So you can press or shift press left mouse key to just swap the side view, front or back. Okay, so if I press shift and right click, you can see that I move this 3D cursor, but now still the middle of the volume of this mesh is here with this orange dot. So if I press to R to rotate, it is rotating like that, right? So not here but from there, and that can be okay. But let's say we want to rotate with this point, making it a pivot. So what we can do is basically using this submenu, so at the top of the window, and use 3D cursor. So like that, you can see I press rotate, R to rotate, and it's rotating with this point. So that is nice. And you may ask, okay, David, that is cool, but what if I want to be really precise? Because if I zoom in, you can see that it may be not fully like, yeah, with the zoom, it's not like in the middle of this object, so you want to make it more precise, right? So it will be really hard to just by shift right clicking to position it really precisely. But there is another thing I will show you today, which is this side panel. So I pressed M, so M to hide and to show. Okay, and you can see we have this transform tool, which is basically the same as just using G or those widgets here. So you can like manipulate the movement, rotation, and scale by multiple ways in multiple places here, and this is also the same. So yeah, it's really handy. And okay, but let's maybe move it to some even number, like I don't know, 2. Okay, and we want to make this 3D cursor also put precisely, right? So let's go to this view, and you have yeah, just hide it to not bother you, and you have this 3D cursor location rotation, because it can be also rotated. Okay, so as you can see, I can just slide like that, or I can put some precise number like that, and bam, it's right in the middle of the object. And if you want to make it precise on Z axis, I can just click it and type 1, and it is now put really precisely. Like I can zoom in, and it will be also always, sorry, in where you actually want it to be, like really precise placement. Okay, so if I rotate now, it's also working, but it's placed better. Okay, so that is really handy, because you can just like slide it and type some particular place, and if you want to reset it, it's like that. So what I did is basically I just dragged the selection and type 0 and enter, and yeah, it's like that. You can make the same with this object. So it's like universal. If you see in Blender values that are like like that, like stacked free values, especially for location, rotation, or scale. You can basically drag them like that and put some value and enter, so you're done. By the way, you can reset the location or rotation and scale differently, like by using a different method. So I just move it like there. So you can just type 0 here, or you can go to object and clear location, right? So it snapped back to the place where it was before. So yeah, we have covered basic navigation and this more of these viewport tools. And what we can do now is also mention that there is a snapping tool in Blender. So let's say you want to move this cylinder by y-axis, okay, but you want to make it precise, so you can press Ctrl and it will snap to this grid subdivision. So you now have like precise incremental movement, so it is really nice. So just remember to like G, Y, let's say, and Ctrl, and it is snapping, okay. The snapping also works with rotation and scaling. So let's say I will now press R to rotate, and let's say by x-axis, and as you can see, it is snapping and rotating, and we have this 3D cursor set here, and we're choosing the pivot point for transformation to make it a 3D cursor, so it's like that. But if I just use this, it will rotate back to this origin point. Okay, right. Okay, that is nice. So remember to snap, just press Ctrl, or if you want to, let's maybe remove this and add another object, and like this time maybe a torus, just to make it more, fun with different objects. So if you know you will use a lot of snapping for any reason, you may just activate this magnet icon, and now if you just press G and let's say Y, you can see I'm not using Control and it is snapping. So it is handy if you want to just base movement or rotation or scale on incremental things like these grid subdivisions. So you can just press it once and you do not need to press Ctrl now. But if you press Ctrl now, it will actually deactivate snapping. So it's like this is like a toggle button between having snapping enabled all the time or just by pressing Ctrl. And if it's enabled, the Ctrl reverse it, so basically disable snapping. So it is handy, and I can maybe disable it, but you can see you have more options here, because there is this increment, which is basically meaning that you like moving and snapping to these grid subdivisions. And by the way, if you zoom, maybe just go to top view, it will be easier by pressing 7. And if you like press G and Ctrl now with this zoomed in view, so you have like more grid subdivisions, you can see I'm snapping to these smaller subdivisions, right? And if I will zoom out, so those smaller subdivisions are not visible, I press G and Ctrl, and it's snapping to the bigger one. So it's like adaptive. So it's really, really nice. You can even press G, Ctrl, it's snapping to bigger subdivisions. But if you press also Shift, it will snap to those smaller subdivisions. So it's like really handy. You do not have to even zoom in, zoom out. You can just use this Shift to like activate snapping to these smaller subdivisions. So yeah, that's kind of nice. And okay, I mentioned to you that you have many coordinate systems in Blender, and that is actually important because, like by default, this is the scene we are working on, and you can have like many objects here. Let's add something more, maybe the Suzanne, because yes, she's nice. Why not? Okay, like that. So let's place her here. And as you can see, we have those two objects, the Suzanne monkey and the Starus, and they are using this global coordinate system. So this x-axis, this y-axis, and like the z-axis, which is here, right? So if I select this object and press G and Z, it is using this global coordinate systems to move the object, right? And if I select Suzanne, I press G and Z, it is doing the same, right? But if I now, let's say, rotate it like that and press G and Z, it's still using this global coordinate system. But if I press Z again, you see, it's like taking into account this rotation we just made. So again, G, Z is global, Z again, it's local. So it's nice because you can just like adjust the you won't have to have this rotation, but you want to slide it like a bit with this axis, so it is local, right? And if I use this widget, you can see we have these arrows, right? But here you have this global option selected. So by default, those widgets are for global coordinate systems. But if you change it to local, you can see now you actually see how the Suzanne is rotated, and that the local coordinate system for this monkey Suzanne is different than the global one. In this case, it is the same because we haven't rotated this torus yet. So if I rotate it, you can see it's changing, right? So it is important for adjusting things and basically to changing some stuff later when you position and you want to adjust, or just for it's like you find uses for it later when you work on more advanced scenes. And you can see that we have more options here, and I will cover this normal one, for example, when we will be making a modeling tutorial, so pretty much soon. Okay, but that would be pretty much all for today, what I wanted to cover. So I hope you have fun and learn something, and yeah, see you next time soon. Bye.